Greetings everyone, Nick on Planet Ripple here. Welcome to episode 5 of LEGO Rewind. Today's focus is the Adventures theme, released in 1998, or as you might know it by the name of its leading man, Johnny Thunder. Johnny is an army veteran turned archaeologist who hunts for treasure and donates his findings to museums, traveling the world accompanied by his mentor Dr. Kilroy and Pippin Reed, a photographer who reports their findings to World Magazine for all to follow the trio's adventures. Johnny himself is kind of a weird mix of a more kid-friendly Indiana Jones and the late Steve Irwin, really laying it on thick with that Australian accent, yeah boy.
A mummy and a mystery. Ace! Oh, that's as good as gold!
Right then, here's a plan. We'll take the biplane. You can find us at the ice.
He's corny, yeah, but it's the good kind of corny that's charming enough to enjoy unironically, and he left a strong impression on my generation of LEGO fans. These characters also make appearances in the LEGO Studios theme. If you think that's a cool crossover, check out this Jurassic Park 3 theme set. I think it's safe to expect this three-way mashup to appear in a couple of future videos too. Heck, these characters were everywhere for a few years. There were loads of Flash games featuring them that unfortunately probably won't be playable for much longer, what with Flash being phased out now. Johnny Thunder was LEGO's superstar for a time, making too many appearances in various LEGO media for me to count. The first line was set in Egypt, with a good lineup of sets. It's hard to count exactly how many thanks to a weird practice LEGO did a lot at the time, and still does to this day, where they changed the number attached to a set and sometimes the name so they could re-release it after a couple of years or just change it for a new country. Sometimes this was the difference between releasing in America and Canada and the rest of the world. I've run into this a little bit with every theme I've made a video about so far. One of these early adventure sets released 3 times. Even this is nothing. Just look at how many ways this holiday jet was released for various countries. It really goes to artificially inflate the theme's lineup. So don't get too excited when you look up these old themes and see 30 set names. When you leave out the repeats, I think this first Adventures line features about 15 sets, which is pretty good. I appreciate this line in particular for being probably the most grounded of the time, aside from Town or whatever. Just look at how small and quaint this Sphinx is, it's adorable! At a time when LEGO was in trouble and basically trying out everything, desperately hoping something would stick, this was probably the most traditional in a sense, with those good old bricks from before all the slopes and curves and macaroni and crazy new colors of our time took over. Those more modern elements were just starting to creep up here. It feels like dipping your toes into the last days of a completely different era, just moments before some great transformation took place. That transformation started to go underway in 1999, with the Amazon line, which featured the gang erasing new villains to retrieve the Sun Disk in South America, dealing with a tribesman named Achu, who had nothing to do with either party, who may be seen as a bit of a racist caricature looking back, I'm not sure. This line only featured 8 sets, pretty short-lived compared to some of the other sub-themes. 2000's sub-theme, Dino Island, is where things started getting weird, shifting the focus to a place that's less based on any real location, to say the least. And it's also the point where we enter that weird time when LEGO started using lots of big pieces. And I'm not just talking about the dinosaurs. Surprisingly though, the price to piece ratio was about the same here as it was in the previous lines, when you'd think the addition of those dinos and other new elements would have bumped up the price a bit. Then again, they're much smaller than today's dinos. This comparatively small T-Rex was treated like one of LEGO's mascots for a while. Old rivals returned like Sam Sinister, one of 2 apparently, to capture the dinos and basically make their own Jurassic Park, with the adventurers stepping in to protect the animals. Dino Island is one of the most memorable locations in the whole theme, appearing in many, and I mean many, games. My 2 favorite examples were LEGO Island 2 and LEGO Racers 2. In LEGO Island 2, they featured it alongside some of the other settings in the line, including a stretch based on the Egyptian sub-theme that started it all. And in LEGO Racers 2, they made the jungle theme part of the Dino Island, merging the 2 sub-themes, and it's unique to see the dinos romping through these ruins. This line featured 14 sets, on par with the first line. After this, the Adventurers crew took a break. They continued to make appearances in LEGO media, but as far as we knew, the story was over. The first 3 sub-themes were essentially a trilogy. It's a very early example of what's become standard practice for LEGO nowadays, planning out a new theme's first 3 years and continuing it later if it does well enough. We wouldn't see any new sets for a while, but the theme did make a comeback in 2003's Orient Expedition, which is the best Adventures line of all in my opinion. This was marketed as the final adventure for Johnny and friends, and if you were my age at the time, this was a big deal. The return of Johnny Thunder, this last hurrah, was treated like an event, and they went out with a bang, setting out to find various treasures around the Orient that would unlock the hiding place of Marco Polo's golden dragon gifted in by Emperor Khan, encountering giant mystical lions, tigers, and yetis as they race to the dragon. You can't make this stuff up. What's interesting about this sub-theme is it kinda had its own sub-themes within a sub-theme. Rather than setting it in one part of Asia, the story saw the gang travel from India to the Himalayas to China. It had around the same number of sets as Egypt and Dino Island each did, but the sheer variety of these incredibly distinct and action-packed sets made it feel like we were getting 3 years worth of stuff in one go. So many new colors and pieces and minifigs galore, it was nothing like anything we'd seen so far. I collected about half of these sets and they were so much fun to build, more than anything else that came before in the line. Admittedly, it did get a little repetitive. There'd be a small set piece, a bit of terrain maybe, a vehicle, a mid-sized set featuring some of the aforementioned Guardians, maybe a chase scene, and a big showdown at a ruin or a palace. But they all felt different enough, with the architecture, characters, and terrain of each location bringing a new flavor. Like these were just glimpses of all the other escapades the adventurers could have if the theme kept going. Orient Expedition was a great send-off to a great theme. I only wish some other themes got a send-off with this much love and resources put into it. As you can imagine, the Adventurers line was put to bed after this. Johnny was set to appear in some form in the cancelled LEGO Universe game, later appearing in several shots of the Emmett Awards when the LEGO Movie was released, and he even made a return in set form for the first time in over a decade in the Super Secret Police dropship set, with all the modern accoutrements you could expect, like backprinting. That's kind of amazing. It makes you wonder how it would go if LEGO ever seriously took another swing at making a new Adventurers follow-up. We've gotten similar things since, like 2011's Pharaoh's Quest, but these minifigs are corny in the way I don't much like. They play it too straight for me to care. But at least that theme had some inspired builds, with a huge focus on Egyptian monuments that would spring to life and attack the minifigs. With so many cool set pieces, this theme easily could have been an Adventurers reboot if you think about it. Just swap out these characters for Johnny and the gang, and I bet you these sets would have printed money. I know that could be seen as just nostalgia pandering, but I kinda get that vibe from this line already. Like, hey kids, you remember that old Johnny Thunder line? You want something kinda similar? Here you go! They may as well have gone all the way with it and just called it Adventurers Pharaoh's Quest. Has a nice ring, doesn't it? Feels natural to me. They also released the Dino theme in 2012, which is just another example of this trend of bringing back old themes every 10 to 15 years with new characters. With so much variety throughout its run to inspire people and all builds aplenty, there's been a decent amount of Adventurers MOCs released over the years. It helped shape LEGO's identity for a long time when they were in a bad place, and their image going forward today isn't that far off. Thanks for joining me today. Next up, we'll take a closer look at the LEGO Studios line. See ya!
Hey Rex, how can you tell the good humans from the bad ones? The good ones taste better.